in seconds. It went from doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo to the worst possible thing you could think of. Probably the easiest place to start is where most of us kind of start. Like what kind of put this on the map for a lot of us was this video of the looked like a music festival or whatever it was, and it was getting attacked by Hamas. I don't know what you would call them, soldiers or fighters, or so. Let's take a look at that.
Insurgents.
Insurgents. There you go.
Yeah.
So Palestinian military group launched its biggest attack on Israel in years, firing rockets and tearing down the border between Israel and the Gaza Strip. Damn. The Supernova Dance Festival was going on, and 3 miles from the Gaza border where Hamas militants are based. My kind of vibe. And then you can see in the background paratroopers coming in, and they're like, "Yo, you gotta get out!" One man opened fire, chased people out. And so, I mean, just seconds ago. And so, I mean, you guys get the point that in seconds, it went from to the worst possible thing you could think of. Shout out to David Banner in the building. Welcome. We got Rabbi Glickman in the building. Hello to Soil to Soul and Unwanted Foe. Welcome to the party, guys. So, Jerkolani, let's go to you first. What is your take on this whole thing?
Honestly, that's like the most tame video that we've seen. I've seen, I don't even think you can say it on YouTube. I think you would get like removed. But the word starts with R, and it's an active one. And
they call it RPay on this channel.
Yeah, RPay. Fuck, dude. I mean, and they bring this girl to the back of a wooden bed pickup truck and unalive this woman via ammunition. I'm trying to be as
You're doing great.
And throw her in like she's cattle. This woman, and by the way, that woman wasn't even Israeli, German. Came for the
right. She was a tourist, right? Crazy. Yeah.
Dual citizen. She was Israeli and German.
Oh, okay.
But
either way,
you know, these people who are not a part of the government, like being a part of the military is not a participating factor in like being the prime minister or any governing body. Like they just are required by law to participate in the government. So like you could call it a casualty of war, whatever the fuck you want to call it, but this is not an appropriate response. You can't do this and then say I'd like peace talks immediately thereafter. What is that even supposed to mean?
Yeah. So and that's getting a little we'll definitely get into what has happened since then. But Frosthound, what's your take on all this?
I mean, it was definitely a shocking use of force. There has been many arguments that have been made that the music festival was just a target of opportunity. In any kind of military operations, you have your main targets and certain goals you want to achieve with force and violence of action. The airdropping troops into the music festival, this was just a mass casualty event. And this is one of those things where it is unacceptable and cannot just say, hey, fighters on the ground in the heat of battle, did this in the throes of battle, in a battle fury. No, this was a targeted attack. This was pre-planned. That's when you would use paratroopers to actually go in and quickly attack a position. And if we're talking about normal military forces, set up a forward advance for your incoming troops.
Okay. So why don't let's rewind and I have a very hard time trying to find any, just like we were talking with Ukraine Frosthound, that it's very difficult to find any like entry level, the first thing you need to know about this stuff. So like obviously I know it's a broad question, but how did this conflict start?
In
You
the
want to?
sense of, go ahead.
No, you go first. I got
There,
notes. So I'm gonna take a while.
there is two senses of this conflict here. There is the geopolitical conflict, and there is also a definite religious conflict. Both, people have a claim to the area. The During the crusading times, there was a kingdom for the Jews in the area, so there is a blood connection there. But what happened 47, 48 was after the Second World War, all the Jews that were taken from the Holocaust and still survived were given a land by the British. England kind of went around, hey, who wants to take in this refugee population? And they're like, don't really want to. But Britain had control over this land, and there's a whole argument to be made here with Lawrence of Arabia and the Arabs during the First World War. But basically, the British had control of the area, and they decided to cede this land over to the Holocaust survivors.
Okay,
So,
Jerkolani,
so I have a couple things to add to that.
please.
So after the First World War, England promised to give up a homeland to Jews because of the fact that they were being persecuted widely across Europe. It was, they were stigmatized. They would make all those, like essentially, I don't even know what you'd call them, like those blackface versions for Jews. So like the big hook nose and like they're taking your money. That's where a lot of that, like the shifty Jew stuff, that's where it started.
Okay.
Was the First World War. So England promised them a homeland, and they didn't do it, and the Holocaust happened. And a year after the Second World War ended, the people who were Jewish living in Europe said, "You promised us a thing, and you never delivered." So the UN got together, and they had to make all these shifts. And because after the First World War, the Ottomans lost, and England took over what was then called New Jordan, I believe. But they had named that specific region Palestine somewhere in this like the 7th century. And it was mostly unoccupied land. There was, I think, around like 750,000 people who lived there. And it's about the size of New Jersey. They moved them to the West Bank and to Gaza, but there was actually more land mass. In that argument, what ended up happening was Jordan and Egypt were like, this is a great time to take our land back. So they invaded via something called, I believe, the PLO, which is a group of Islamic countries that are surrounding Israel, and took a significant amount of land, the Muslim land that would now be called Palestine.
Gotcha. So, so then fast forwarding back to kind of with all this happening, it's obvious that it's a very difficult, like almost like chicken and egg kind of situation. Like who started this? Where does it go back to? And we're kind of in this situation now where it's like like Frosthound said, that both sides have claim. And so what exactly are the at least today, what are really the two opposing positions of that are at odds?
Well, the major issue that a lot of pro-Palestine people do have was, the idea of Zionist militias coming in 47, 48 and actually driving a bunch of people from their homes and relocating them into Gaza. Max he was on Timcast last night. I was listening to him, and I extremely disagree with the gentleman. He does have a point there that most of the people who are in Gaza right now, 80% of them are refugees, who are kind of, shuffled into this ghetto. There's definitely some major issues there. So you've been living there, for generations and then just forced out. And for 75 years you've had to kind of live under this occupying force. So there can be some
Next.
resentment there. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I have a question because I'll forget because I'm stupid.
Yeah, go ahead.
But the thing is that weren't the Jews forced out of their homes in like the 1600s and forced to wander? Like literally, we have plants named after that. Like there's like stories told about the wandering Jew. It was because Islamic people forced them out of their land.
And that's so that's really what we're talking about. Those are the two those are the two sides. Is that the kind of and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more of like we were here first versus like, well, where the fuck else are we supposed to go?
No, it's not even that. So like Israel, the monarchy of Israel, or the Israelite monarch, was created in 1,000 years before even modern time. Like before. And technically 1,700 years before Islam would even exist. So, because we go backward in time, so like BC is like it goes from like one backward and then this way forward. And they were in the 7th century. The 7th century is when Medina and Mecca were created. So respectively, Saudi Arabia and Iran now. Where eventually the Ottomans were a participating factor in spreading Islam.
I mean, it goes before the Ottomans. We can go to the Mamluk Empire. We can go to Muhammad himself uniting the area. Just because cities were formed there, and we have a strict lineage there, doesn't mean there weren't people who were traveling around the area. Many of these Arab cultures are nomadic, kind of moving between these areas at a time. There was settlements, don't get me wrong, but it was very much a nomadic tradition. So just because
of Judaism didn't start until the 1700s when they were forced to leave. Like Jews did not roam until the 1700s. So like saying that they didn't have a home is kind of ironic. It's like when we say like, oh, Native Americans didn't have a place where they lived, they just all wandered around. That's not true for all tribes of Native Americans. Some of them did have a home and we did force them out.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed that clip, check out the full live stream link in the bio and catch me live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. See you there.